Hello, everybody. Before we start this episode, we just need to do a quick trigger warning. This episode will contain discussions of sexual assault. Therefore, if this is something that is uncomfortable for you, skip this one out and we'll see you next time. Okay? Well, enjoy the episode. Bye.
I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
I'm 37? I'll have what she's having.
Well done! Well done!
Hi, everybody. I'm Hela,
I'm Bruno.
and we are your hosts for the Film Store Basement podcast. If you are new here, then hi, welcome. Hope you
Hello.
enjoy your stay. Hope you'll be back. Then for that, you should follow us. But if you're not new here, then well, I guess like hi, you probably are back from the first part. Yeah, because this is the second part of our Poor Things episode. We just started a new season, and we just decided to start with the bang of a movie that is Poor Things. And yeah, I mean, the movie has so much around it, so much discussion to have that we had to do it like two parts. And the first
Yes.
one was just a rundown of the plot, but this one will just dive in some of the themes and discussion about it, because although we are late, because we're like almost a year late into this, it's fine. I feel like it's still relevant and the movie was fun. But yeah, definitely some discussions to have about it.
Oh, yes, I have read so many opinions, like friends and from like critics and all, and even social scientists about this film.
Really?
There is so
Yeah,
much
a
to
lot of
say
people have
about the
a
film.
yeah. People have a lot of opinions about it. You see, I saw the movie when it first came out, and I remember not feeling particularly anything about it. Like I was not
Really?
like I thought it was visually fun, and I thought it was a
Okay.
great narrative. I wasn't so outraged like people ended up being. I don't know. And then when I start reading criticism around it, I was just a bit okay, I get it, and we can have a discussion about it, but it really did not bother me that much. Like, come on, maybe
Oh,
these are like subjects
yeah.
that I've been thinking about a lot
Yeah, I
throughout
was
my
gonna
life.
say
Maybe these
that.
are
Yeah.
subjects that are not new for me. And like, I don't think Poor Things is really just something that is so outstanding and
Yeah.
like groundbreaking in terms of like discussion about women and sex and body autonomy and whatnot for me to be so scandalized and being like, oh, this movie. It was really like whatever.
Well, that's like, let's say, quote and unquote, the advantages of being like a red fam, isn't it? So it doesn't shock you.
Okay, you know
Uh,
what? Don't call me a red fam. That's so weird. Like just because I really I've never thought you taught me. Do you think I'm a red fam? Is that it?
you a bit. Not
Okay,
not
but
as much as of now, but I
okay,
remember
I'm
when
not a
we met.
liberal. I'm not a
When we
liberal, but
met, you
like
were like a red fam, yeah.
okay, yes. I'm a red fam.
You're not a
But
turf, but
I'm
you
not
are a
I'm
red fam.
not I'm not like that's why because I think nowadays the radical side is much more just a, like it's much more just turfs,
Yeah.
and you don't see a lot of radical feminists that are not turfs, and that I
Yeah.
was like concerned. Do you think I am one? Like because
No,
I
no, no.
like I just disagree so much with
No, I
that.
know a
So
few red fams that aren't
um
turfs that are like inclusive. It's nice to learn from an inclusive red fam. They have nice points. They have like
I
nice
just
points of discussion.
I feel like I've ended up drinking a lot about both sides.
Yeah.
That I think that's the most important part for me, I guess. I don't know about just going into one side of the movement or the other. I feel like both make good points. I don't agree with everything that both sides say,
Yes.
and like the individuality comes from that. You can criticize a movement and not be like totally just everything they say is correct,
Oh,
and
of course.
and I feel like feminism is a great movement to do that because it has a lot of like issues. A lot of people just need to shut up. It's true, and I feel like a lot of people just need to shut up when it comes to poor things and the
Yeah.
discussion around sex. Just come on. Like, really, were you scandalized by the sexual content on this, shown in this movie?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't. But it's like I've read like personal opinions. I'm going with like
You're
personal
starting with
opinions,
personal opinions.
like
Okay.
from people, like from my friends and women and around, because it is a good film to discuss and see a lot of things. Of course, it is a film that comes from a novel written by this guy, this very satirical guy and very
Which I
critical
didn't
guy.
know.
Oh,
I
you didn't
didn't know
know?
it was a novel adaptation. I didn't know. I thought it
Yeah.
was just like a crazy
No,
concept
no,
of a
no.
movie.
That
Like, and
novel is
then
amazing.
yeah, well, I didn't know, okay? And when I haven't read the novel, so I
Okay.
cannot make like because then when I was like reading about it and I realized a lot of people are just comparing this to this book, like
Yeah.
and how this movie adapts the book, and I was just like confused because I cannot argue against what these people are saying because I haven't read, so
Oh,
I don't
okay,
have a
okay,
means
okay.
of comparison, but like apparently it is a novel and a lot of people like the novel a lot because I don't know, I feel like what I've understood, Bella's character is represented a bit differently than what Yorgos Lanthimos did in Poor
Yes, because
Things.
you have more space when in a written page, of course.
You do.
You
That's
have
true.
more availability and more freedom to describe people. But it's a really nice adaptation, although the film doesn't touch in certain aspects that the novel touches, right? I was a bit like with the film because when Poor Things came about and I read about it and I was like, oh, this is an adaptation from a novel. Luckily, I got my hands on a copy of that novel in the library, and I read through it, and I was like, oh, this is quite amazing. How the hell did they make a film about this? And then when I saw Poor Things, I was like, oh, I get it now. But
Okay.
but they're
Okay.
like because the book has won awards and everything, and the book is I think it's from the 70s or the 80s or something like that, or late 80s. But
Wow. So it's during the sexual liberation, the first one.
this guy went places. This guy went to places with the book. It's possible to grab the film through Duncan's eyes, isn't it? It's from that poor, sad character.
Duncan Weddenberg, yes. I
Yes.
mean, come on.
Even for a man in the 80s or late 80s, 90s, that character is annoying as shit. One of the opinions that I saw was from this from a friend of mine, a woman, and she said it's a beautiful story about a new beginning, about the possibility of having new beginnings. Which I was a bit say again.
What does she mean about a new beginning? Like, what's that interpretation about? Like, Bella being
Um,
reborn and
Bella
suddenly
being
she's like,
reborn, Bella being given a new life when she as Victoria kills herself, and then she gets reborn, and then it's like this new beginning. You have erased your entire past life and you start anew, like with a new identity and
yes.
everything, and you
But that
find
seems
out.
quite obvious, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
like the obvious part of the movie. Like, of course, she's reborn because, like, that's just literally what's happening, right? I
yeah.
mean,
The
her
thing
dead
is,
body gets conscious again by a new brain that
yeah, but
happens to be the child that's inside of her. So.
yeah, sure, but the thing is, it's the little things. It's like it's a new opportunity because of what? Like that's the main thing for me. It's a new she gets a new life, a new opportunity because she wanted to die, she committed suicide, and the man saw a floating body and decided that she was going to live again.
Well, I just think that's a conversation about consent that the movie
Yes.
just does not have it, you know? I mean, you do not have consent over Bella being reborn again. I mean, that's also like us. You don't have consent on being born, to
Oh,
be
yeah.
honest. Like you
Sure.
don't. You're just born. So the thing is, she doesn't have that consent. She's not thought consent throughout the whole movie. I
Yeah.
mean, even as a child, even like to understand her autonomy, her individuality, her sexual awakening. So throughout the whole movie, there's no thought about consent. So yes, I guess that's a point of it. Yeah.
Which is actually a very great social commentary. I know that your generation grew up with this as more or less as a fact that consent is law, but like my generation didn't. And for my generation, it's very difficult to pinpoint where the consent is or where the need of consent is, or how the lack of consent actually dictates over the other person's lives. Like that, like he just decided that he's gonna make this woman live again, a woman that decided to kill herself. And it's that power discourse that men always carried out over women. Not how women get oppressed and all that, because we all know that. It's the mechanisms behind it. It's the little things, the little gestures that actually do it. In that sense, my feelings for the film is that it didn't go as deeper as it could, or it wasn't as in your face as it could.
You don't
Then
think it was
opens,
as in your face as it could? Because like I feel like the criticism is exactly the opposed to that. It's like it was too much in your face to the point that people were just like repulsed by it. Which I actually disagree. I like I've
yeah,
said it in the beginning. I don't think the movie was that in your face, and what people consider being in your face was just pretty much cinema being cinema. Like this is
yeah,
not a new thing, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And I just think this is a prime example of what this generation, or how this generation reacts to not only about the sexual positive movement, but like how it is, or the saturation of it, you see,
yeah.
in media and in art form. I don't think the problem here is that the movie shows sex or that the movie exploits sex, and because this is not a new thing and there are movies that do it quite quite in a worse way than this
Oh
one,
yes,
honestly, and in a more brute way, and just or even like it's just it's not comparable. But I do feel like the audience that got to see this movie just being like premiered during this time, which is not your generation, is quite it's mine
yeah,
predominantly, and also young millennials and older Gen Z, and especially Gen Z in general, you see, have quite like this issue with the whole sexual content, or content that is sexually charged,
yeah,
more that than just sexual content, because sometimes I don't think it's about just showing sex, but sometimes content that is just remotely sexual in the most minor way can like open up a huge discussion. And I do think it's just one of the contradictions with the movement of sexual positivity that this generation also kind of like made thrive. And I don't think it's about being prude or not, because the criticism that been seeing about this movie is just first, there is like the whole argument about just showing a bunch of sex scenes, which I don't think that's the case. I don't think this movie shows that many sex scenes. And I have a whole opinion about why these sex scenes are actually something that I think makes sense in the movie.
oh yeah. They do make sense. Yeah,
They do. I mean, we can talk about that now. I don't think this movie necessarily just shows sex scenes because it's just for entertainment purpose or just for shock value, or just I think they have a purpose there. And also people sometimes deal with sex scenes in movies as they are watching porn, which is just two
yeah,
different stuff. I do criticize movies that use like that don't use sex scenes for cinematic purposes. For instance, they just show a sex scene that is like that is just awfully directed,
yeah,
like they are out of breath just by doing foreplay, and you're
yeah,
just there listening to their breathing. Like the sound, like the music, the background is not even there. You see,
yeah,
like whenever it's a bad directed sex scene, I'm like, this is awful. For this, I
yeah,
would go and watch porn. I don't know.
yeah.
Like I don't think this is like I don't know. I don't like it. But you do have a lot of movies that utilize sex scenes as something that is very creative, something that is well paced, and something that adds to the artistic vision of the, I don't know, weirdness of the movie. I mean,
Mm.
I'm just thinking about some examples. I'm thinking about Amélie, for instance, which
Yes.
is a very like a very artistic movie, you know.
Very, yeah. Very beautiful movie.
It's very beautiful in terms of like the cinematic vision. And it does have a sex scene. I mean, the movie is not sexually charged, but it does have a sex scene and it's beautifully made and it's quite long. I mean, and they utilize the coffee shop and the lights and also like the kitchenware and
Yeah.
everything just to show the building of the climax. And it's just so creatively done and it's so fun and so beautiful. And I do think Poor Things also does sometimes that. I mean, people were like, why did we have so much naked Emma Stone? And it's like, because freaking Emma Stone wanted to be naked there. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people forget that Emma Stone was a producer on the movie. And the whole criticism about, oh, this is just a movie made for male gaze and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, yes, sure, but like, oh, and she was made to just be naked in the movie, be exploited and all that. And it's like, have you ever thought that maybe Emma Stone, being a producer in the movie, chose that she wanted to like present
Yeah.
herself like this in the movie? And isn't that like just the most feminist aspect of it all? Like she having the choice of just presenting herself like this? But no, because the movie is directed by a man, and probably because there were a bunch of men on this work, suddenly her own choice, which we don't know, to be honest, like we weren't there in the room with them. But I do think it's not to be overlooked that she was a producer and probably her choice to just be shown like this in the movie, which is not even a big deal. Like, have you not
No.
seen movies? This is not the first time that this happens. I feel like this is one of my biggest problems with liberal feminism is because in one side we are like, yeah, go girl, like be naked and be comfortable in your own body and show it off and like the sex positive movement. I mean, which
Yeah.
is great and it has its right and also it is born in radical feminism and whatever. But like there is also this side that is a consequence of it because women being comfortable with their sexuality and showing it off, it is an empowered movement. But one of the consequences with this is that you still benefit the wants and needs of patriarchy. It starts because you made that choice, but it still benefits what oppresses you. And I think people kind of forget that. Let's put this into Poor Things. Sure, Emma Stone chose to show her body. Yes, Bella Baxter is enjoying having sex. But a consequence of it is these sex scenes still benefit the male gaze, are still for the male gaze. And Bella Baxter is still being pretty much just sexually exploited. And I
What?
feel like two things can exist at once. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
like,
sure. Of course. Because I see that, understand that, like even when with the story of Lady Godiva, the fact that she was riding a horse all full naked, it still goes into the male gaze, still benefits the male gaze.
yeah.
But it's like you said, it's a choice. But
I
this,
think the empowerment here is not that she's naked, is why she's naked, you
yeah,
see? And it's not the fact that she's riding the horse naked. I mean, if you tell me that she's riding the horse naked because she was made to ride the horse naked,
yeah,
then
it's a
my
different
opinion
story.
will change, you
Of
see?
course,
But if you're telling me that she's riding the horse naked because she wanted to ride the horse naked and she's comfortable with it and whatever, then like the motives for an
yeah.
action really
Hmm.
impacts your way of seeing such action. And it's not just the final product of it, but it's like what motivates this product to happen, to reoccur.
Let me jump in a little bit, saying during the story, not even like film production, but why is she naked? Why? What are the consequences of it? And why? That's the thing with Duncan and the character being such an idiot. It's like even with the sex scenes and everything, you have like that beautiful speech of Duncan, right? I'm joking, of course, saying like something like not being funny, but I'm the best lover there is. Like
Oh,
I feel
yes,
sorry
yes.
and everything for the
Yeah,
for
just
for the
very
after because
ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, poor
you won't
guy.
have another.
Yeah, poor guy. He really thought he did that. He really thought he did something by doing that. Like,
Yeah,
come on. First, we have sex scenes, but we also have sexual scenes,
yeah,
which for me are different stuff. I think like her sexual awakening and her first time touching herself and what of that are like sexual scenes. You
yeah,
see, not necessarily like a sex scene. But that's important. That's an important scene. And then we have like the montage of them having sex in Lisbon when
yeah,
they were like the first stop of their voyage. And I think that scene is important. A lot of people are really disturbed by it, but because it's one of those scenes like, why are we showing it so much? And I think it makes sense because like it shows that Bella is actually enjoying doing that. Like she
Yeah.
discovers it and she's like enjoying doing that with this character, this person, whatever. They're doing it a lot. And honestly, it was not such a big montage as people are making up to seem. And
Oh, no, no,
I
no.
have to argue because I was thinking while reading so much about this, or, how much I was reading about it and people talking about the male gaze, I was thinking about if I considered these scenes so male gaze as such, because there was something enjoyable on them through my eye. And I do think they are very much made for the male gaze. I do see that. I don't know. I'm still trying to kind of understand what do I see in terms of female gaze in these scenes as well.
Okay. What I think about those scenes, and if I gather all the scenes, like with Duncan, with the brothel and everything, it's a huge joke on men because it's like as you said, like Belle is still wants to do furious jumping. She kind of control of the situation, and Duncan is just there for it. And even later in the brothel, like it shows all of those men are, let's say, quote and unquote failure.
And that's the point. And that I think that makes total sense. Like something that I feel like a lot of people are missing when they are like criticizing the sexual nature of this movie. And like it's not just about her showing off, oh yeah, she took charge of her body and her sexual autonomy and she decided to do sex work and yeah, good for her and she's confident about it. It's like, but why show so many men and so like, because that's exactly what sex work is. You see,
Yeah.
like I feel like people got so disturbed by seeing especially the sex work portion of the movie when they are in Paris.
Yes.
Because it was pretty much a bit grotesque, seeing so many men that are not like, and Bella being like used, and but like what were you expecting? I mean, she's doing sex work.
Yeah.
And from what I understood, in terms of like a lot of sex work testimonies, it's pretty much accurate.
Yeah.
The people that pay for this service, yes, you might have a lot of average people. I'm not saying that average people don't indulge in such services, but you do have a lot of people that have weird kinks or
Oh
are
yeah.
the outsiders and cannot get sex by themselves, so they have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And sex work, it is a way of just having the entrance to a very fetishized and just kinky world for a lot of people that are not comfortable just sharing that with the world. So therefore, they have to pay for it.
Yes.
Sex work is not glam. I don't think poor things even glamorized
No,
sex
it
work.
doesn't. It doesn't.
I don't think it does. And I think the variety that it was shown in that montage was exactly pretty much I mean, I cannot say for sure, but from what I understood in terms of a lot of people that are familiar with sex work and saw the movie. Now, I'm not saying that I think that Poor Things does not deserve some criticism, because I do think the movie is flawed in some aspects, and we'll get into it. I do think it is valid for people to be pretty much uncomfortable with the fact that we are talking about a child
Yes.
brain, you see.
Yes. I
And I
was getting
think,
there.
yes, and I think this is important if you're going to talk about the movie and the ethics of it and all of that. Like, I do think that's like pretty much important. But like newsflash, the same way like the sex work segment essay, and just not to keep on using like very much triggering words, but like essay towards minors and
Hmm.
other types of like sexual abuse towards minors is something that is pretty much common and normal. And I'm not saying that because of that, like the movie is absent of criticism, but like for people who are very familiar with that, it can be triggering, but it's also like it is not uncommon for grown-ups to take advantage of children. So it's like
Of course not.
so it's like the movie has every right to even represent that if it wants to, you see?
That criticism comes from a place of ignorance. And I read that criticism. And I was reading it and I was like, but in what world do you live in?
Like, I feel like it was pretty realistic that the movie chose. I mean, yes, we can talk about Bella having a brainchild and being taken advantage by basically everyone in their life
It's not that
in her
it,
life. The only people that I feel like did not take advantage of her were like those two people in the boat in the cruise.
yeah.
The old lady and
Mm-hmm.
Henry, I guess, the guy who
Yes.
was very cynic. Feel like they just are a part of her kind of opening her more critical thinking and
Yeah.
they were there for her. But like the rest of people, including God
Yeah.
and Max McCandles, were people that took advantage of her. I mean, I'm sorry. How the hell are you going to ask a child to marry you?
Oh yeah, of course you have that. But it's like, and I saw people criticizing like, oh my God, what are they showing in the film? But it's like, in there's a lot of countries having this discussion now in the parliaments because I've seen some of these discussions, and the amount of children or youngsters from 12 years onwards that are married, like legally married, it's astounding.
Yeah,
It's like
child marriage is it is
this
a
all
problem. It
always
is something.
existed. It never went away, and but people want to wash everything, and they come with their moralities and everything, and they
And
ignore
I think
this.
Yeah,
And I was like,
and I
that's
do
not the
think like
point with the film.
the movie is not even like glamorizing it or not even like
No.
advocating for it. That's what you got from the movie. I think you need to watch it again because what? Because that doesn't make any sense. You
No, it
see,
doesn't.
people were very uncomfortable that Duncan took advantage of Bella when she was still a child because she was still pretty much having her mind pretty. But for instance, you don't have in real world we know of. We don't we don't know of a person who has their baby's brain.
Of
You
course
see,
not.
like, okay,
That's a
no.
sci-fi bit of the film.
But I do think Bella represents a pretty real person of someone that is mentally challenged,
Challenge,
or,
yeah.
so in those terms, I'm like, do you think those people are not taken advantage of by older and
Of
disgusting
course
people?
they are. Of course they are.
So it's pretty much normal. It did not surprise me that that happened, and I don't think the movie normalizes it.
No.
But I also have to criticize that the movie also does not show that much consequences for Duncan, except his male ego just being destroyed. And
Yes.
also, I do have to criticize that Bella never really is affected by the abuse
Abuse.
that she's
Yes.
subjected to, and this is
She
something that
becomes
I
an abuser.
she does. But she's also but that's the thing, like she ends up maturing, but she never really comes to the realization that she was taken advantage
Yes.
of. And I feel like this is a loose knot that the movie just didn't quite get there, and I wish it would have, because this is also part of someone coming to terms with their trauma. If we are getting into this being something that happens in real life, coming to terms with their trauma and just realizing, okay, so I recognize that this was abuse when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I don't think Belle ever does that. And I
No.
don't think the movie ever like comes. She like and even like sex work, and even the fact that she does sex work is like, I don't think, although nowadays we do have a lot of people that do sex work because they want to and that's something they enjoy, and but it's not the case for the majority of people,
No.
okay? A lot of people have to do sex work because it's the last resource that they have to actually make some money, usually not an act of want, but an act of need,
Yes.
okay? And Bella does it because it's also an act of need because she doesn't have
Yeah,
money
yeah,
and
of
this is like
course.
the quickest way. She doesn't seem very disturbed by it,
No.
except that she's a bit like uncomfortable that she cannot choose the man, but like still, it's something that is a bit brushed off, I feel like in her maturing.
I think
Do you
yeah,
do you,
it
do you
is.
know
It
that?
is.
Do you
It
get it?
is.
Yeah.
But again, if you go a little bit back, it's like, isn't that normal though? I know it's not normal for your generation, which is something that I've came to learn, dealing more with people from your generation, which is an awesome thing that your generation has. But for my generation, it's very normal that you never deal with it. I wouldn't go after the film for that because it actually holds the reality side of it, especially because like if we're going like no, this is 19th century. There wasn't psychology in 19th century.
I
There
mean,
was
you had exactly like the beginning of studying of women's sexual body,
yeah,
but it was
it was like
obviously something very negative, and
yeah
we see this happening in the
in the
last
film.
part of the
Yeah,
movie
yeah,
when her husband, when she was Victoria, is talking to a doctor to remove her external part of her sexual
yes,
organs. And this is pretty much very related. Of course, you can make the argument of men just controlling women's sexuality, but
yeah.
if you take it to the 19th century, I think it's very much in historical theme that men during that time were really just blaming women's sexual organs and especially the clitoris
Yeah.
for their hysteria and all of that. So, which was
Uh,
just basically, Freud's fault, but okay. Anyway.
don't come with
And
Freud. My man Freud.
no, I'm
My boy
sorry.
Freud.
But that's the truth. So I just had to like,
Don't invoke his name in vain. That's
okay, whatever. Anyway,
But let me ask you something from
okay,
your
ask.
generational point of view, because this is like one is a thing that I read, one is actually comes from my own experience. It's an episode in my life. The two of them actually are present in this film in a way, as I see it. You might not see it.
Okay, ask away. I'm curious.
So the first one is something that I read that was written by a woman, of course. And when I say of course, it's because it comes from a female perspective. And she says men are interested in our sexuality, but not in our sexual freedom.
Yes,
That's the first one. The
the
second
quote,
one,
yeah.
that's the Bella part of the story. Now the Duncan part of the story, which is
I feel like
this
that
was
quote is very much like also representative of Duncan's side of the story.
kind of because it has to involve him. He has to involve him. What I'm saying is it's the I in the question, like it comes from Bella's side. So this actually was a conversation I had like years and years and years and years ago. My first serious relationship, I was like 21 something, and the girl was like 18, turning 19. We met in university. And of course the relationship started and she had no sexual experience whatsoever. So we had like this beautiful relationship and he ended like years after years and years after, we were actually talking. We had like gone for a coffee and we're just talking. She says something to me, which is in a sense of a more deconstructive way of thinking, very beautiful. In a manlish kind of thinking, in a masculinity kind of thinking, it was like being shot at. And this is the Duncan side of it, which actually it relates to this film, which is she said something to me like I'm paraphrasing, but something like, I can never forget that you were the one that showed me and taught me how to make love. If I make love the way I do it nowadays, is because of you, something like that. Which the two things actually tied up in this film. And this is like the consequences that
Was
Duncan
she was
faces.
she grateful when she said that? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
what's
yeah.
up with
She
this
she
quote?
no, she
Okay,
was
because he
grateful.
could take this quote to like
Yeah,
two different directions.
yeah, no, she was
Like, I
grateful.
suck at it because that's how you taught me how to do it. I was just thinking,
Thank you
like,
for the part that
what?
touches me.
Just you have two ways of interpreting it. I was
Yeah,
just
I
thinking, was
know.
she like yay or nay about it? So
No, she
that
was
was just
yay.
okay. No, that's awesome for you. Good for you. But and good for her too. I mean, but
I
like,
want to say
how does
fuck you.
but how does that relate to the Duncan part
What do you mean? How
of the
does it
movie?
relate to the Duncan part? That's
I
that's
mean,
the
yes, he's the one who taught her
Yeah,
how
and
to
then
furious
she goes
jump.
no, that's it relates because of the masculinity side of it. The way I felt, like what you mean? Like I taught you, and then you went out to the world having sex with other men. You see,
Oh
that's
yes,
the
yes,
side of
that's
it.
that's Duncan. Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I mean that's Duncan. I mean, once I taught you, but the point is, I do feel like Duncan doesn't really see that way. He's like, you had sex with me. I was the one who taught you, but now you're having like sex with other men, so like therefore me thinking I was the best and now you choosing other men is like crushing my manhood,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
my
Of
man
course.
confidence,
That's
and
what
uh,
I felt.
and I do think that relates to the first quote that you asked me. Like, of course, I mean, men want a woman that is sexually curious, that is promiscuous and all that, but like only for them. It's like behind closed doors
Yeah.
because it is a sign of like, it is something that feeds their fantasy of possession of a woman's body in terms of and a woman's sexuality. They have to be the sole reason for a woman to even want to explore her sexuality. And they can like manipulate, that exploration of it, by doing different stuff. But once a woman actually takes charge of it and says, you know what, I want to peg you. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, no, like just taking this like come on like
Okay.
serious, like a lot of women maybe want to explore different stuff,
Yeah.
and they think, okay, maybe I can do this with this person that I was actually exploring my sexuality with. But if it's not convenient to them, that sexual exploration, then it becomes a problem because suddenly she's having her own voice, her own autonomy to actually make choices about her body, what she wants, what she needs, how she likes it, what she'd like to try. But it has to be for a man, it has to be in his perimeter. You
Yeah.
see, everything that goes beyond that starts to be a problem that affects their manhood, their man confidence. And this is something that Poor Things does pretty well. I mean, you see Duncan just because he doesn't get his way and feels his manhood pretty much hurt, he does do what a lot of men do. I mean, especially what we call an incel, that is,
Yeah.
call a woman a whore
Yeah.
pretty loudly, like just screaming about it. So there is a part of the movie that I really like when he calls her a whore, her and her communist friend, Tonette. They just turn around and Bella just says their own means of their own production or something
Yeah,
like that.
yes.
That for me really represented her maturing to her own sexuality. One of the few moments in the movie because the movie misses Bella actually experiencing the trauma of maturing sexually.
Yes.
You see, and that's very human. I'm sorry, it is, especially if you have been taken advantage of at a young age. And don't forget, Bella is like, okay, she has the baby brain, but she's also like developing very fast. This is part of the fantasy of the movie, like the sci-fi of the movie, compared to normal human rate, you see.
Yeah.
So she will get maturity, but I feel like it's incomplete there. And also talking to that subject. And I do feel that the sexual nature of the movie misses also other discussions that are important for a woman's sexual awakening and sexual discovery of her own pleasure and body and self and confidence and whatnot, which is, for instance, especially if Bella is like we are from the beginning experiencing her journey, it's like there is no mention of menstruation, for instance.
Yeah.
There is no mention of the horrors of sex work and diseases. I mean, there is at the end, but it's not like a consequence, or even
No.
pregnancy, or there's like there is like nothing of consequence of something that's pretty much real for a woman's life,
Yeah.
if we want to take it there. Bella really is not affected by anything. And this for me is annoying because it's like no woman has this type of sexual journey, and is not affected by it.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
But for Bella, it's like everything is just done very much stoically. Come
Yeah.
on, she's very stoic about everything. She's like, oh, this brings me happiness. Oh, this that brings me happiness also gives me money. Oh, I'm just happy doing this. Yay. It's like if she's maturing and even her critical thinking and all of that, I mean, come on. She could have at least, and if it's such a big subject in the movie, it's such a big theme in the movie to talk about this, then it should have been delved into the negative sides of it as well. And the movie
Yeah.
misses that.
Well, yes, in the novel also does it. Then you have the basic thing, which is the novel is written by a man. It was adapted by a man and shot by a man. let me wait. Hold your red fam a
What?
little bit.
Okay, well.
But the thing is, there are stuff as a writer, I can see it, but because there are stuff that doesn't belong in our world, we never had to deal with it. You can learn about it, but they are never in the forefront of your creative thinking. And it's very common to see your critique is very important. It's very valid. It's like, come on, she's having sex every single day and nothing happens, like in the brothel, like, like,
Yeah,
like,
like diseases. I mean, she encounters a bunch of weirdos, but what about like
yes,
violent nature of it?
but
Because
it's
what about the abusive side of it? What about like the dangerous side of it?
of
Because like,
course, and it's there's a simple thing that you bring, like the menstruation. No sexual worker works every day
yeah,
because
I mean, and but you
because
can
of
like
even
work if it's a
menstruation
kink, but
gives
if
it.
it's a kink,
Well, okay. If
that's
if there,
another thing, you see.
yeah,
But
if
it's
there's a
completely erased. It's like it's not even a
no, it's
thing. It's
not
like
even there. It's not nothing,
it's like
nothing.
God when he operated on Bella, on Victoria in this case, creating Bella, he took her uterus and took everything that would come with it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
no mention of pregnancy, of like Bella being able to be pregnant or not. We don't
yeah,
know. I didn't understand that. Like no mention of menstruation. Like why? Because she does not have her internal sexual organs, reproductive organs. Is that it? Like we don't have a mention about it, but it should matter to have it. Like I was wondering that. So
yeah.
my problem, like as I think it is pretty obvious, is not like the sexual nature of the movie because I think that's pretty much like it's there, it's done. And honestly, it does not bother me that she has a brain child, that she's an infant in child. It is disturbing because that's a disturbing thing, of
Yeah.
course, being taken advantage as an infant, as a minor. But like, it's also a real thing. It's
Yeah.
also something that happens. I'm not necessarily someone who thinks that art has to be like ethically and morally correct and just upright
Hmm.
on everything. I think art has every right to be corrupt, especially if we go through, which we don't have the time to delve into this conversation about art imitating life and life imitating art,
Yeah.
but we do know that one influences the other. Okay, we
Oh,
can
yeah,
just
sure.
we can just say this. And if the problem that people are having is, oh, people are seeing this movie and thinking and being influenced by it, and like art is education, and people are like normalizing, I don't know, sex with minors and whatever the criticism was being about this. I
Yeah,
was like, I don't think that's the point, and I don't think like art will always be interpreted in different ways.
of
And
course.
I'm sorry, you cannot really make a piece of art that will be I mean, come on. A piece of art that is just like that one dimension
No,
is not
no,
art.
it's
I'm
not.
sorry.
It's
It's not
not.
even. It's not, it cannot even be qualified as art. And art has every right to be morally corrupt because it drinks influence from life itself, and life itself is corrupt. Life
Yeah.
itself is wrong, is disturbing, has issues. And you know what? I don't think the movie was normalizing that. And you have to have a critical mind to also like be able to understand that when a movie is not normalizing it or is normalizing something like
Yeah.
that. I just feel like I'm really disappointed in my generation for that. Like, come on, guys.
And as an artist and everything, it's one of the generational gaps that I see. It's like it's this quote and unquote normalizing speech. It's very conservative in one point, and he raises good questions, good like progressive liberal questions on another point, which is just because you show something, you're not normalizing it. And for me, art is always a barometer of reality. It does drink from reality because we are all humans, and up to
And
this
how could
point,
it not? Like, how could it not?
yeah,
Where do
up to
you
this point,
where
we
do you
don't
source
have,
it? You have
yeah,
to source it from somewhere. And I think it says a lot that such a movie did brought up so many reactions, you see.
yeah,
There is a side of me that is like, I don't get the fuss. I don't get
no,
why people are being so dramatic about it. And then I went and read why, and I was like, I still think that this is just an overreach. And maybe for me, a movie like this will not make such a big impression on me because I'm pretty much used to these types of subjects. I think the movie was beautiful, and I think like the surrealist part of it, I think that was even like that. We should have like rave about that. You
Oh,
see?
yes, we did in the later episode. The art direction was beautiful.
A lot of people are like, oh, is this a feminist movie? Is Poor Things a feminist movie? And I hate the whole discussion of what is a feminist movie. Like,
Yeah.
if you want a feminist movie that delves into like feminism 101, in like the literal sense, you see, like it's in your face and like there's nothing else for you to really just think about. Go and watch Barbie. Okay,
Oh,
Barbie
yes,
did that.
yes, yeah,
And like that's why I kind of roll my eyes at the movie like Barbie because I'm like I know it might be a good movie for a lot of people that are not used to this discussion, you know? But like for someone who is,
yeah.
it's nothing. It has no substance like a movie like Barbie, you see? But if you want that, then go ahead and watch Barbie. There's nothing to discuss about it. It's like in your face, everything, like all the arguments, everything is there. They
Yeah.
even have a big speech about it. I don't know, in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
But like, if you want
Yeah.
a movie that can be related to a feminist discussion, then you can pick a movie like Poor Things, you know,
Yeah.
for the sole reason that this movie approached a subject that is being discussed now. That actually, it is a discussion that the feminist movement has been having for quite a couple of decades now, so it's not something new. This doesn't mean that the movie is fully right, it represents the feminist movement or whatnot. So this doesn't mean that the movie is fully right or represent the feminist movement really well. It does not mean that. It just means that it's a movie that, just as the feminist movement has space for criticism, has space for critical thinking, okay? For discussion of a subject that in this case would be the sexuality of women and everything around it, you know? Like the movement nowadays is pretty much polarized. We talked about it in the beginning. And like, I don't see how art that takes upon a current subject has any other way than just be interpreted in different ways or evoke different reactions and opinions. It's just like there is no other outcome. That's exactly what a social political movement does. And to think that having a movie that delves into the sexuality of women would have just one reaction and we would have to interpret as something that is right and well done. I think that's a very mature thought. Yeah, so that's like our second part of our discussion of Poor Things. We've
Yes.
discussed a lot. It's a long one. Tell us what you think. Like, I'm thinking you have seen Poor Things, and if you have not, like, then, like, oops, spoilers. But yeah, like, what are your opinions on what we discussed? Like, is there something that we said was like a hot take, and you totally disagree with us, and you're going to unfollow us for it, and like never really just listen to us again, like block us on all social media? I mean, you could do that if you are that passionate about your opinion.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. I don't think that will happen. Yeah, it would be really cool to see what you think. Have you read other opinions of other people? What were your thoughts the first time you watched the movie? I mean, just share it. I mean, we would be very curious about it.
I would
Yeah.
want to read upon it. Yeah.
I mean, you can contact us via our email or on Instagram. Those are the two platforms where we are most active. Everything will
Yes.
be linked down in the description.
Yes, and make sure that you don't miss an episode by subscribing on
Yes.
Spotify or even
Next
on
episode
YouTube.
will be a bit gruesome, so like be ready. It was my choice, so like buckle up
Yeah.
and follow us to not miss an episode. Okay? Bye.
See you guys. Bye.